husband told me I was too unstable to handle our finances. But when his mother asked to borrow money, she accidentally sent me the Venmo request meant for him. The notification lit up my phone at 6:47 a.m. while I was making breakfast. Request from Dolores. $3,500 for the usual. Don't tell Ren. She'll just make a fuss. Ren, that's me. My own mother-in-law couldn't even spell my name right after 9 years. I stared at the screen. Eggs burning on the stove. The usual. What usual? According to my husband, we were barely scraping by. That's why I wasn't allowed to see our bank statements. That's why my debit card had a $200 weekly limit. That's why I had to submit receipts for every grocery trip like a teenager begging for allowance. You get overwhelmed, he'd explained when we first got married. Numbers stress you out. Let me handle it. I'd believed him. I'd had anxiety in college. Took medication for a while. He'd witnessed one panic attack during tax season and appointed himself my financial guardian. For nearly a decade, I'd trusted that we were struggling, that his overtime was keeping us afloat, that I needed to clip coupons and skip coffee runs because money was tight. $3,500 for the usual. My hands shook as I screenshot the request before Dolores could delete it. Then I did something I'd never done in our marriage. I logged into our bank account. The password was his birthday, pathetically easy. What I found made my knees buckle. We had $847,000 in savings. Our checking account held $34,000. There was a separate account labeled Mom Support with a transfer history going back 7 years. Monthly payments of $20,500 to $5,000, totaling over $280,000. I scrolled through transaction after transaction. Designer purchases. Golf club memberships. A down payment on a boat I'd never seen. Meanwhile, I'd been wearing the same 3 pairs of jeans for 4 years because new clothes weren't in the budget. My sister had offered to pay for my birthday dinner last month. I'd almost cried from gratitude. I heard the shower turn off upstairs. My husband would be down in 10 minutes, expecting his coffee and eggs, expecting his obedient wife who didn't ask questions. I kept scrolling. There were payments to a jewelry store. 4 of them in the past year. I owned exactly 2 pieces of jewelry from our marriage, both purchased before he took over finances. Where was the jewelry going? Then I found the credit card statement. Hotel Marmont. $847. Dinner at Castellanos. $312. Another hotel, another dinner. A couple's massage at a spa I'd never been to. All on dates when he'd claimed to be working late. The pattern was unmistakable. Every month like clockwork. I heard his footsteps on the stairs. My whole body went cold, then hot, then something else entirely. Something sharp and focused. For the first time in years, I didn't feel unstable. I felt completely, terrifyingly clear. He walked into the kitchen, hair still damp, smiling that smile I used to love. Morning. Everything okay? You look pale. I held up my phone, showing the Venmo request. Your mother sent this to me by accident. His face cycled through 4 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, fear, then complete blankness, like a mask dropping into place. That's not what it looks like, he said. Interesting, because it looks like you've been sending your mother $250,000 while telling me we couldn't afford new shoes for our daughter. He set down his coffee very slowly. You went through our accounts. His voice was harder now. You know you're not supposed to do that. Your anxiety. My anxiety, I repeated. The jewelry purchases. The hotels. Who is she? I think you need to sit down. You're spiraling. This is exactly why. I screenshot everything. Already sent copies to my sister and my lawyer. He stared at me, and I watched the concerned husband routine crumble away, revealing something cold underneath. You really shouldn't have done that, he said quietly. The kitchen went silent except for the hiss of ruined eggs on the stove. I reached over and turned off the burner without breaking eye contact. What exactly are you going to do about it? I asked. He took a step toward me. Not threatening exactly, but deliberate, calculated. The way you approach a cornered animal. You don't understand what you've stumbled into, he said. This is bigger than some midlife crisis affair. This is my family's business, my mother's future, our daughter's inheritance. Our daughter, I repeated. The same daughter who wore secondhand clothes to school because we couldn't afford new ones? The same daughter whose field trip I almost couldn't pay for last month? He had the audacity to look annoyed. I was protecting you from the stress of managing large sums. You've never been good with money. Remember when you overdrafted in college? Remember when? That was 15 years ago. I was 22 and working part-time while finishing my degree. I didn't have money to manage because I didn't have money. Exactly, he said, as if I'd proved his point. You've never understood finances. I was shielding you. Shielding me from what? Our own wealth? From knowing my husband was sleeping with someone else while I counted pennies for gas money? He flinched at that. The first crack in his composure. I'm not sleeping with anyone, he said. The hotels, the dinners, the jewelry are for clients, he said quickly. Entertaining clients. It's part of the job. Couples massages for clients? He opened his mouth and closed it again. Who is she? There's no one. I pulled up the credit card statement on my phone and started reading aloud. Hotel Marmont, March 14th. Hotel Marmont, April 18th. Hotel Marmont, May 22nd. Same hotel, same pattern. Once a month for, I scrolled back, 18 months. What client requires monthly hotel visits? His jaw tightened. This is exactly what I was worried about, he said. Switching tactics. You're catastrophizing, making connections that aren't there. This is your anxiety talking, not reality. I stared at him. genuinely amazed. My anxiety, I said slowly, is not the one who's been lying for 9 years. I haven't been lying. I've been managing. Managing what? Managing to hide nearly $1 million while your wife wore shoes with holes in them? Managing to send your mother $250,000 while telling me we couldn't afford to visit my parents for Christmas? Your parents live across the country. Flights are expensive. We have $847,000 in savings. That money is for the future, for retirement, for emergencies. What about the boat? I asked. Is that for emergencies too? His face went pale. What boat? I found the down payment. $20,000 to Harbor Bay Marina. Dated 6 months ago. Where's the boat? He didn't answer. I'm going to ask you one more time, I said. Who is she? The mask was cracking now. I could see the real person underneath, and I didn't recognize him at all. 9 years of marriage, and I was looking at a stranger. Her name is Cordelia, he finally said. Cordelia. The name hit me like a physical blow. Not because I knew her, I'd never heard the name before, but because it made everything real. There was a real woman with a real name who'd been sleeping with my husband for 18 months while I scraped together change for groceries. How did you meet? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Does it matter? It matters to me. He sighed, running a hand through his still damp hair. She works at the firm. Started about 2 years ago. We didn't plan for this to happen. They never do, I said. How long? I told you. 18 months. Is it serious? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and something in his expression made my stomach drop. I was going to tell you, he said. I was waiting for the right time. Tell me what? He took a breath. I want a divorce. The words hung in the air between us. I should have been devastated, should have collapsed, cried, begged him to reconsider. That's what he expected. I could see it in his face. He was braced for hysterics, ready to comfort me with platitudes about growing apart and wanting different things. Instead, I laughed. He blinked, clearly thrown. You think this is funny? I think it's hilarious, I said. You've been planning to leave me. That's why you hid the money. That's why you kept me financially dependent. You wanted to make sure I had nothing when you walked away. That's not... How much were you planning to give me in the divorce? A few thousand? Enough to get an apartment while you kept the house, the savings, everything we built together? He didn't deny it. You don't understand how these things work, he said. The money came from my family, my inheritance, my investments. You'd be entitled to very little. I've been your wife for 9 years. I raised our daughter while you built your career. I gave up my own career to support yours. That's worth nothing? You didn't give up anything, he said, and there was contempt in his voice now. What career? You were a receptionist when we met. You've never had ambitions beyond this house. Because you told me we couldn't afford for me to go back to school. Because you said someone needed to be home with our daughter. Because every time I suggested working, you said the stress would trigger my anxiety. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to control me. We stared at each other across the kitchen island. 9 years of marriage dissolving in real time. Every memory I had was rewriting itself. Every tender moment revealed as manipulation. Every sacrifice I'd made exposed as pointless. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. Got your screenshots. What the hell is going on? Call me. I looked back at my husband. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to take our daughter to school. Then I'm going to meet with a lawyer. A real one. Not whoever you were planning to use to screw me over. And you're going to give me access to every account, every asset, every penny you've hidden. He actually smiled. Or what? Or I'll send everything I have to your firm. Every transaction, every hotel receipt, every payment to your mother that you wrote off as business expenses. I'm sure your partners would love to know how you've been managing the books. The smile vanished. You wouldn't. I've been married to you for 9 years, I said. I know exactly how important your reputation is. You'd rather lose half of everything than have your colleagues know the truth. He stood there, frozen, calculating. I could see him running through options, looking for an angle. I'm going to go wake up our daughter, I said. When I come back down, I want you gone. Stay at a hotel. Stay with Cordelia. I don't care. But you're not sleeping in this house tonight. This is my house too, he said, but there was no conviction in it. Then stay, I said, and I'll call your mother right now and ask her about the usual. His face went white. Fine, he said. Fine. I'll go to my mother's. Good. I turned to walk upstairs, then stopped. One more thing, I said. How long has your mother known about Cordelia? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I climbed the stairs feeling like I was walking through water. My legs were shaking, my heart was pounding, but my mind was crystal clear. For the first time in nearly a decade, I could see my life with perfect clarity, and I hated every single thing I saw. My daughter's room was at the end of the hall, decorated with the fairy lights we'd found at a thrift store because I thought we couldn't afford new ones. She was still asleep, her dark hair spread across the pillow, one arm wrapped around the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was a baby. She was 8 years old. For 8 years, I'd told her we needed to be careful with money, taught her to turn off lights to save electricity, made her feel guilty for wanting things other kids had, all while her father hoarded a fortune and spent it on another woman. I sat on the edge of her bed and gently shook her shoulder. Hey, sweet girl. Time to wake up. She stirred, blinked up at me with her father's eyes. Is it already morning? It is. We're going to have a special breakfast today. What kind of special? Whatever you want, I said. Pancakes with chocolate chips, waffles with strawberries, you name it. She sat up, suddenly alert. Really? But you always say chocolate chips are too expensive. The words hit me like a knife. I know, I said. But I was wrong about that. We can afford chocolate chips. She looked at me uncertainly, like she wasn't sure if this was a trick. Is everything okay, Mommy? Everything is going to be fine, I said. Better than fine. Things are going to be different from now on. Different how? Different good, I said, and pulled her into a hug before she could see my tears. We drove to the diner on Main Street, the one with the big neon sign and the bottomless coffee. I'd driven past it hundreds of times, always thinking we couldn't justify eating out when we could make breakfast cheaper at home. The menu prices made me want to cry. Pancakes were $8.99. For years, I'd been buying the cheap pancake mix and rationing syrup like it was liquid gold. My daughter ordered chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream and a hot chocolate. I ordered the same. When the bill came, I paid with the credit card my husband didn't know I had, the emergency card my sister had insisted I open 3 years ago, just in case. While my daughter ate, I texted my sister, "Can you pick up Gemma from school today? I have meetings." "What kind of meetings?" "Lawyer." Then probably a locksmith. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I'll clear my schedule. Come over after. We need to talk." I drove Gemma to school, watching her skip toward the entrance with chocolate still smeared at the corner of her mouth. She looked happy, unburdened. She had no idea her whole world was about to change. Neither did I, really. But I was about to find out. The law office of Fitzgerald and Associates was in a renovated brownstone downtown. I'd found them through a quick search on my phone for divorce lawyers with high ratings and aggressive reputations. The reviews said they were expensive, but worth it. I walked into the reception area and told the woman behind the desk that I needed to see someone immediately, that it was an emergency. She looked at me with practiced sympathy. "Do you have an appointment?" "No. But I just discovered my husband has been hiding almost $1 million from me while conducting an affair for 18 months. I have documentation of everything." Her eyebrows rose. "Please have a seat," she said. "I'll see what I can do." 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from a woman named Theodora Blackwell. She had silver hair cut in a sharp bob, reading glasses perched on her nose, and an expression that suggested she'd heard every terrible thing a spouse could do to another and was no longer capable of being surprised. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. I started from the beginning. The panic attack that made my husband decide I couldn't handle finances. The years of budgeting, scrimping, feeling guilty for every purchase. The debit card limits, the receipt submissions, the constant messaging that we were barely getting by. Then the Venmo request, the bank accounts, the hidden wealth, the affair. Theodora listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen. "How long have you been married?" 9 years. "And in those 9 years, have you worked outside the home?" "Only part-time when Gemma started kindergarten. He said we didn't need the money and it would stress me out." "What about before the marriage? What did you do?" "I was a receptionist at an advertising firm. I had plans to go back to school for marketing. But then we got engaged and he said we should focus on starting a family first." "And you gave up those plans?" "I thought we couldn't afford for me to go back to school. I thought I was making a sacrifice for our family. Turns out, I was just making it easier for him to control me." Theodora nodded slowly. "What you're describing is financial abuse," she said. "It's a form of domestic control that often goes unrecognized because there's no physical violence involved. But it's just as damaging. Financial abuse." The words felt both foreign and exactly right. "What can I do?" "Quite a lot, actually. You've been married for 9 years, which means you're entitled to equitable distribution of marital assets. It doesn't matter that the money came from his family or his investments. Anything acquired during the marriage is fair game. He said I'd get almost nothing. He's wrong. Or lying. Probably both." She pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. "Here's what I need you to do. First, gather every piece of documentation you can find. Bank statements, tax returns, credit card bills, anything that shows the full picture of your marital finances. Second, do not leave the house. He may try to pressure you to move out, but the marital home is a shared asset, and whoever leaves first can be seen as abandoning it. Third, don't confront him again without witnesses or recording. And fourth," she looked at me over her glasses, "don't sign anything. Not a single piece of paper, no matter what he tells you it's for." I nodded, trying to absorb it all. "What about the affair? Does that matter in a divorce?" "We're in a no-fault divorce state, so technically no. But it can impact how the court views his credibility, especially combined with the financial deception. Judges don't look kindly on spouses who hide assets and cheat simultaneously. And his mother? She's been receiving money from our accounts for years." Theodora's smile was sharp. "Those payments may need to be recovered as dissipated marital assets. Your mother-in-law might find herself owing you money." Despite everything, I almost laughed. She would hate that. Most of them do. We spent the next hour going over details. Theodora explained the divorce process, the timeline, the likely outcomes. She was honest about the challenges. My husband had resources and connections, and he wouldn't give up without a fight, but she was also confident. "You have leverage," she said. "He's been hiding assets, which is illegal. He's been conducting an affair using marital funds, which is wasteful dissipation. And he's been financially controlling you for years, which any judge will find reprehensible. If this goes to trial, it won't go well for him. What if he tries to settle? Then we negotiate from a position of strength. You should aim for at least half of everything, plus spousal support given your years out of the workforce." And full custody of your daughter, given his pattern of deception. Full custody. I hadn't even thought that far ahead. Do you think I can get that? I think you have a very good case, she said. Especially if his affair partner becomes a factor in his living situation. I signed the retainer agreement and wrote a check from my emergency account, nearly draining it. But Theodora assured me we could petition for my husband to cover legal fees given the disparity in our financial situation. When I walked out of that office, the sun was high in the sky and the world looked completely different, sharper, clearer. Like I'd been looking at everything through smudged glass for years, and someone had finally cleaned it. My phone buzzed. A text from my husband. We need to talk. Please call me. I deleted it without responding. My sister lived in a small craftsman bungalow on the east side of town. She'd bought it herself 3 years ago, after her own divorce. She'd tried to warn me about my husband back then, tried to tell me that something wasn't right about how he handled money. I hadn't listened. She opened the door before I could knock. Get in here, she said. Her kitchen smelled like coffee and banana bread. She'd been stress baking, which meant she'd already seen the screenshots and was preparing for a crisis. Tell me everything, she said. For the second time that day, I did. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I'm going to kill him, she finally said. You can't. I need him alive for the divorce. Fine, I'll maim him. Just a little. I almost smiled. How did I not see it? I asked. How did I spend 9 years with someone and not know who he really was? Because he didn't want you to see. He was good at hiding. That's not your fault. I believed everything he said. About the money, about my anxiety, about needing to be protected. I let him make me small. My sister reached across the table and took my hand. You were surviving, she said. You were doing what you had to do to keep your family together. That's not weakness. That's strength. It doesn't feel like strength. It will. Give it time. Gemma appeared in the doorway, her backpack still on. Mommy, why are you crying? I hadn't realized I was. I'm okay, sweetheart. Just having a grown-up talk with your aunt. Are you sad? A little. But I'm also okay. She crossed the room and climbed into my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck. It's okay to be sad, Mommy. When I'm sad, I hug my elephant. Do you want to borrow him? I held her tight, breathing in the smell of her hair, the solid warmth of her small body. I would love to borrow him, I said. That night, I slept in my sister's guest room with Gemma beside me and a borrowed stuffed elephant tucked under my arm. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, running through everything that had happened. My husband had been lying to me for 9 years. He'd hidden money, conducted an affair, planned to leave me with nothing, and his mother had known, had probably encouraged it. I thought about all the dinners at her house where she'd looked at me with barely concealed disdain, the comments about my cooking, my housekeeping, my failure to lose the baby weight fast enough, the way she'd praise her son while ignoring everything I contributed. She'd known. All along, she'd known. And Cordelia. Who was she? What did she look like? Was she younger than me? Prettier? More sophisticated? Did it matter? I rolled over and looked at my daughter's sleeping face. She was breathing softly, her lips slightly parted, completely at peace. She had no idea that tomorrow her life would be different, that her father wasn't coming home, that everything she thought she knew was built on lies. How was I supposed to tell her? How was I supposed to explain that the person she trusted most had betrayed us both? I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I dozed in fits and starts, waking every hour to check my phone for messages I didn't want and would never respond to. By morning, I had a plan. The house was quiet when I pulled into the driveway. My husband's car was gone, which meant he'd actually listened and stayed away. Small miracles. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Everything looked the same. The living room with the secondhand couch I'd recovered myself, the kitchen with the outdated appliances I'd never been allowed to replace, the photos on the wall of our family looking happy and normal. Lies. All of it. I went to his office first. He'd always kept it locked, claiming he needed to protect sensitive work documents. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted him. The door was locked now, but I'd already called a locksmith. He arrived 20 minutes later, a burly man named Dominic, who didn't ask questions when I explained I needed to get into my husband's home office. Happens more than you'd think, he said, working on the lock. Spouses keeping secrets behind closed doors. The lock clicked open. There you go, ma'am. Anything else? I handed him $100, more than his fee, but I didn't care about money anymore. Thank you. That's all. The office was smaller than I expected. A desk, a filing cabinet, a computer, and a safe in the corner. The walls were bare except for his diplomas and a photo of him shaking hands with some important-looking man I didn't recognize. No photos of me, no photos of Gemma. I started with the filing cabinet. It was organized meticulously because of course it was. My husband was nothing if not organized. Folders labeled by year, by type, by purpose, tax returns, investment statements, insurance policies. And there, in the back, a folder labeled personal. Inside, I found everything. The prenuptial agreement he'd been drafting without my knowledge, the financial projections showing how much he could keep if we divorced under specific conditions, the correspondence with his own lawyer about protecting assets from a spouse claim. He'd been planning this for at least 2 years, long before Cordelia, apparently. He'd been preparing to leave me since before our 7th anniversary. I kept digging. There were love letters, actual handwritten love letters, which seemed absurdly old-fashioned until I read them. They weren't from Cordelia. They were from someone named Beatrice, dated from 5 years ago. Cordelia wasn't the first affair. She was just the current one. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the papers. 5 years ago, I'd been pregnant with complications, on bed rest for the last 2 months. I'd thought my husband was working extra hours to cover my medical bills. He'd been sleeping with someone named Beatrice. I put the letters aside and moved to the safe. It took me 3 tries to guess the combination. His mother's birthday, the same numbers she used for everything. Inside, I found cash. Stacks of it. $20,000, maybe more. There were also documents, deeds to properties I'd never heard of, investment accounts in his name only, and a life insurance policy on me worth $500,000. A life insurance policy. On me. I sat back on my heels, trying to process what I was seeing. Was this normal? Did husbands routinely take out large life insurance policies on their wives without telling them? Or was this something else? I photographed everything. Every document, every letter, every stack of cash. Then I put it all back exactly as I'd found it. The computer was password protected, but I knew my husband. I tried Gemma's birthday. Nothing. His mother's birthday. Nothing. Our anniversary. Access granted. His email was open, hundreds of messages neatly organized into folders. I went straight to the one labeled C and started reading. The affair with Cordelia had started innocently enough, at least according to their correspondence. Late nights at the office. Shared complaints about demanding spouses. A drink after work that turned into dinner that turned into a hotel room. But as I read further, the tone changed. She's becoming suspicious, one email read. We need to be more careful. Don't worry, Cordelia had replied. Once the divorce is final, we won't have to hide anymore. Once the divorce is final? They'd been planning my disposal like I was an inconvenience to be managed. I scrolled back further and found something worse. The life insurance policy has been active for 3 years, my husband had written. If something happened before the divorce, it would actually solve a lot of problems. I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over. If something happened, it would solve a lot of problems. Was he actually considering? No, he couldn't be. That was paranoid thinking. That was exactly the kind of catastrophizing he'd always accused me of. But the email was right there. The words were clear. I screenshot everything and sent copies to 3 different email addresses. My own, my sister's, and a new account I created on the spot. Then I cleared the browser history and shut down the computer. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold. I left the office exactly as I'd found it and went to pack a bag. By the time I reached my sister's house that evening, I had a suitcase full of clothes for Gemma and me, a folder full of printed documents, and a growing certainty that my situation was far worse than I'd initially thought. My sister took one look at my face and sent Gemma to watch TV in the other room. What happened? She asked. I showed her the emails. She read them twice, her face going progressively paler. He's not actually, she started, then stopped. He wouldn't actually hurt you, right? I don't know, I said. I don't know anything about him anymore. We need to tell the lawyer, and maybe the police. And say what? That my husband wrote a vague email about life insurance? They'd laugh me out of the station. Then what do we do? I'd been thinking about that during the entire drive over. We document everything, I said. We build a case so airtight that he can't wriggle out of it. And we don't let him know we're doing it. My sister nodded slowly. Okay, what do you need from me? I need you to keep Gemma safe. And I need you to help me figure out who Beatrice is. Beatrice? There was another woman, before Cordelia, 5 years ago. Jesus Christ, my sister breathed. How many affairs has he had? That's what I need to find out. We spent the next 3 hours going through social media, public records, anything we could find. Beatrice was a common enough name, but cross-referencing it with my husband's work history and known associates eventually led us to a LinkedIn profile. Beatrice Thornton, former paralegal at his firm, left the company 4 years ago, around the time the affair apparently ended. She was beautiful, in that polished professional way that made me feel inadequate just looking at her photo. Sharp cheekbones, perfect hair, a smile that suggested she knew secrets. I found her current workplace, a law firm across town, and her email address. Are you going to contact her? My sister asked. Not yet. I need to know more first. I bookmarked her profile and moved on. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. I met with Theodora twice more, sharing everything I'd discovered. Her expression grew grimmer with each revelation. The life insurance email concerns me, she admitted. It may be nothing. People say things in emails they don't mean, but combined with the pattern of financial control and deception, it paints a disturbing picture. Should I go to the police? Not yet. We don't have enough for them to take action, and approaching them prematurely might tip him off. For now, focus on the divorce proceedings. We'll file next week. She also advised me to change the locks on the house, which I did, and to document any attempts by my husband to contact me. There were many attempts. Calls that went to voicemail, texts that ranged from apologetic to angry to pleading, emails with subject lines like, "We can work this out and think about Gemma and you're making a mistake." I saved them all and responded to none. On the 4th day, his mother showed up at my door. I watched her through the peephole, a small woman with expensively styled silver hair and a face that had been surgically maintained into an expression of permanent displeasure. She was wearing a cashmere coat and carrying a designer handbag worth more than my car. "I know you're in there," she called out. "We need to talk." I didn't open the door. "My son told me everything," she continued. "This whole situation is a misunderstanding. If you'd just listen." "A misunderstanding," I repeated through the door. "Is that what you call 18 months of lying and cheating? Marriages go through rough patches. That's no reason to destroy a family. He destroyed the family, not me. She was quiet for a moment. What do you want? She finally asked. Money? Is that what this is about? I laughed, though nothing was funny. I want my husband to face consequences for what he's done. I want my daughter to grow up knowing that lying and cheating are not acceptable. And I want you to leave my property before I call the police. You'll regret this, she said. My family has resources you can't imagine. If you think you can win against us in court, goodbye, I said, and walked away from the door. She rang the bell for another 10 minutes before finally leaving. I watched her drive away in her luxury sedan, then called Theodora to report the incident. Harassment, she said. We can use that. The divorce papers were filed 6 days after I discovered the Venmo request. I had them served to my husband at his office in front of his colleagues, which Theodora said was petty but satisfying. She wasn't wrong. That night, he showed up at the house. I'd changed the locks, but that didn't stop him from pounding on the door and shouting, "Open the door! This is my house, too. You can't keep me out." I recorded everything through the window. Gemma was at my sister's, thank God. She didn't need to see her father like this. Red-faced, furious, nothing like the calm, controlled man who'd convinced me I was too unstable to handle my own life. I called the police. They arrived in 7 minutes. "Ma'am, is this your husband?" the officer asked. "Yes. We're in the middle of divorce proceedings. I've changed the locks per my attorney's advice." "She can't do that," my husband shouted. "I have rights." "Sir," the officer said calmly, "if divorce papers have been filed, you need to work this out through the courts. You can't force entry into the home. This is insane. She's the one who's unstable. She has anxiety issues. She shouldn't even be making these decisions." The officer looked at me, then at my husband, then back at me. "Ma'am, do you have documentation of the divorce filing?" I showed him the papers on my phone. He nodded. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave the property. If you have concerns about your rights to the home, take them up with your attorney." My husband stared at me with pure hatred. "You're going to regret this," he said. "I will destroy you in court." I said nothing, just watched as the officer escorted him to his car and waited until he drove away. That night, I didn't sleep either. But it wasn't from anxiety or fear. It was from planning. The discovery process in a divorce is designed to force both parties to reveal their assets. Theodora explained that my husband would be legally required to provide documentation of every account, every investment, every piece of property. He'll probably try to hide things, she warned. They always do. But forensic accountants are very good at finding what people don't want found. She hired one, a woman named Priscilla with sharp eyes and a reputation for uncovering financial deception. Within 2 weeks, she'd found 3 more hidden accounts totaling another $400,000. How did I not know? I asked, looking at the numbers. How did I live with him for 9 years and not see any of this? "Because you weren't looking," Priscilla said. "And because he's very good at hiding." She also found payments to Beatrice Thornton, monthly transfers that had continued for 3 years before abruptly stopping. Hush money, Theodora guessed. Paying for her silence after the affair ended. Why would she need hush money? Maybe the affair ended badly. Maybe she threatened to tell you, or report him for workplace harassment. There could be any number of reasons. Can we contact her? You can. It might be useful to know what she knows. But be careful. She may not want to talk. I decided to try anyway. Beatrice Thornton worked at a mid-sized law firm downtown, specializing in employment law. I found her email through the firm's website and drafted a message. "Ms. Thornton, my name is Wren. I believe you were involved with my husband several years ago. I recently discovered evidence of your relationship while going through divorce proceedings. I'm not writing to accuse you of anything or cause you trouble. I simply want to understand the full scope of his deception. If you're willing to talk, I would appreciate the opportunity. If not, I understand. Best regards, Wren." I sent the message before I could second-guess myself. Her response came the next morning. "Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th and Vine. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Come alone." I went. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of tea in front of her. She looked different from her LinkedIn photo. Older, more tired, less polished. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I almost didn't," she admitted. "Getting your message brought back a lot of things I'd rather forget. I understand. I wouldn't have contacted you if it wasn't important." She took a sip of her tea. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. How it started, how it ended, why he was paying you for 3 years after." Her face tightened. "He told you about the payments?" "I found the records. I'm trying to understand why." She was quiet for a long moment. "It started like these things usually do," she finally said. "I was new at the firm. He was charming, attentive, made me feel special. I knew he was married, but he said you were separated, that you were mentally unstable and he was staying for the kids. We only have 1 child, and we were never separated. I know that now, but I believed him at the time." She traced her finger around the rim of her cup. "The affair lasted about 18 months. Then I got pregnant." My heart stopped. "Pregnant?" She nodded. "He wanted me to terminate. Said it would ruin everything, his career, his reputation, his custody chances when he divorced you. I refused." "What happened?" She finally looked up at me, and her eyes were bright with tears. "I miscarried at 12 weeks. The stress, probably. Or maybe just bad luck. But after that, I wanted out. I told him it was over, that I was going to transfer to another firm. And the payments? He said they were severance. A thank you for my discretion. But I know what they really were. Hush money." She nodded. I took them because I needed to get away. I took them because I was scared of what he might do if I refused. And I took them because I blamed myself for everything that happened. It wasn't your fault, I said. He lied to you too. I know. But knowing and feeling are different things. We sat in silence for a moment. Is there anything else? I asked. Anything that might help me in the divorce? She hesitated. There's something I never told anyone, she said. About a month before I miscarried, I found some things on his computer. Documents about life insurance. Calculations about what would happen if something happened to you. My blood ran cold. He showed them to you? No. I found them by accident. He'd left his laptop open. When I asked about it, he said it was standard estate planning. But the way he looked at me, she shuddered. That's when I started wanting out. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Who would I tell? He's charming, connected, respectable. I was just the other woman. Who would believe me over him? I believe you, I said. She looked at me with something like relief. I'm glad you're getting out, she said. I'm glad you found the truth before it was too late. Me too. That night, I sat in my sister's living room and stared at the wall for 2 hours. My husband had been planning something, maybe for years. The life insurance, the financial control, the isolation from family and friends. It all fit a pattern I should have recognized much earlier. I'd read about cases like this. Women who ended up dead after discovering their husband's secrets. Women who were made to look unstable right up until they weren't around anymore to defend themselves. Had I been heading toward the same fate? I couldn't know for sure. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe the emails and documents were innocent. Maybe Beatrice's story was exaggerated by her own guilt and fear. But I couldn't take that chance. I called Theodora the next morning. I want to accelerate the timeline, I said. I want this divorce finalized as quickly as possible. She was quiet for a moment. What happened? I told her about Beatrice. About the pregnancy, the payments, the documents she'd seen. This changes things, Theodora said. We need to bring in additional help. What kind of help? A private investigator. Someone who can dig into his background, find patterns we might have missed. Do it, I said, whatever it costs. The investigator's name was Cornelius Fletcher. He was in his 60s, with a weathered face and a slow way of speaking that made everything sound significant. I've been doing this work for 40 years, he told me at our first meeting. I've seen every kind of marital deception you can imagine. But your husband is particularly sophisticated. Sophisticated how? The financial structures, the hidden accounts, the pattern of control. It takes planning to maintain that kind of deception for 9 years. Most people slip up eventually. Your husband didn't slip up. You only found out because his mother made a mistake. What does that tell you? It tells me he's either very careful or very practiced. Maybe both. Over the next 3 weeks, Cornelius dug into my husband's past in ways I couldn't have imagined. He pulled old employment records, talked to former colleagues, investigated properties and businesses. What he found was disturbing. Your husband has been married before, he told me one afternoon. I stared at him. That's not possible. He told me I was his first wife. You were his second. His first wife was named Rosalind. They were married for 4 years before divorcing. What happened? She filed for divorce citing financial abuse and emotional manipulation. The case was settled out of court with a significant non-disclosure agreement. He paid her to keep quiet. Cornelius nodded. There's more. After the divorce, Rosalind moved out of state, changed her name, essentially disappeared. Why? He pulled out a folder. I managed to track her down. She agreed to talk to me, off the record. And? She's terrified of him, he said simply. Said he made her life a living hell during the divorce. Threatened her, stalked her, made it clear that speaking about their marriage would have consequences. What kind of consequences? She wouldn't say. But she begged me to tell you something. What? Get out, get far away, and never look back. I sat with that warning for days. Get out, get far away, never look back. Was it really that serious? Was I really in danger? Or was this just the paranoia of someone who'd been through a bad divorce? The answer came a week later. I was at the house. My house now, legally speaking, since the court had granted me exclusive occupancy during the proceedings, gathering more documents. Gemma was at school, my sister was at work, and I'd taken the day off to organize the evidence Cornelius had been collecting. I didn't hear him come in. Hello, Ren. I spun around. My husband was standing in the doorway of his former office, smiling that smile I used to love. How did you get in? I demanded. I changed the locks. I had a copy made before you did. That's illegal. There's a court order. He shrugged. Court orders are just pieces of paper. They can't actually stop anyone from doing anything. I reached for my phone, but he was faster. He crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed my wrist. Don't, he said. We need to talk. Let go of me. Not until you listen. His grip tightened. Pain shot up my arm. You're hurting me. Am I? His voice was conversational, almost pleasant. I'm sorry about that. But you've been making things very difficult lately. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. About what? About how this is going to end. He let go of my wrist and stepped back. I've been patient, he continued. I gave you space to process your feelings. I didn't fight the divorce papers or contest your custody of Gemma. I've been reasonable. Reasonable, I repeated. You hid $1 million and cheated on me for years. Details. In the grand scheme of things, those are minor issues. What matters now is the future. What future? Our future? He smiled. You see, I've been doing some thinking. And I've realized that divorce isn't actually in my best interest. The financial exposure, the reputational damage, it's simply not acceptable. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to reconcile. I want us to work through our problems like mature adults. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. We'll go to counseling. You'll stop this lawsuit. We'll tell everyone it was a misunderstanding, and in a few months, things will go back to normal. Normal? After everything you've done? His smile faded. You're not hearing me. This isn't a request, it's what's going to happen. Or what? He didn't answer immediately. Just looked at me with those cold eyes I was only now learning to recognize. Do you remember what I said about your anxiety? He finally asked. About how you sometimes lose touch with reality? I'm not anxious. I'm furious. Are you? He tilted his head. Because from where I'm standing, you look unstable, paranoid. The kind of person who might hurt herself or others. I would never, wouldn't you? You've been under tremendous stress lately. The divorce, the revelations about our finances, the pressure of single parenting. It would be completely understandable if you had some kind of episode. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying that perception is reality. And if people perceived you as unstable, doctors, judges, child welfare services, that perception could have consequences. I stared at him, finally understanding. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice. You can drop this divorce, come back home, and we can pretend none of this ever happened. Or you can continue down this path and discover just how unstable you can appear when I'm done. I grabbed my phone off the counter. He didn't try to stop me. I'm calling the police, I said. Go ahead. Tell them your husband came to talk about reconciliation. Tell them you feel threatened by words. See how seriously they take you. He straightened his jacket. Think about what I said. You have 48 hours to make the right decision. Then he walked out the front door like nothing had happened. I called Theodora immediately. We need to move faster, I said. He came to the house. He threatened me. What kind of threats? He said he would make me look unstable. Said he could influence doctors and judges. Said I had 48 hours to drop the divorce or else. She was quiet for a moment. Did you record it? No. He caught me off guard. But I can describe exactly what he said. That's good. Write it down while it's fresh. I'm going to call an emergency motion for a restraining order. Will they grant it? With what you've described, combined with the history of financial control and the violation of the court's occupancy order? Yes, I think they will. The hearing was scheduled for the following morning. I spent the night at my sister's, Gemma sleeping beside me, going over my statement again and again. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. The judge was a woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense expression. My husband sat at the other table with a lawyer in an expensive suit, looking calm and confident. Mrs. Callahan, the judge said, can you describe what happened yesterday? I did. Every word, every gesture, every implied threat. I explained the pattern of financial abuse, the hidden accounts, the affairs. I described the emails about life insurance, the warning from Beatrice, the first wife who'd changed her name and disappeared. Throughout my testimony, my husband maintained his composure. He shook his head at certain points, smiled sadly at others, played the role of concerned spouse perfectly. Then it was his turn. Your Honor, his lawyer said, my client is deeply concerned about his wife's mental state. She has a documented history of anxiety. These accusations are symptoms of her deteriorating condition. My client came to the house to discuss reconciliation, not to threaten anyone. The judge turned to me. Do you have documentation of these alleged affairs and financial issues? Theodora handed over the folder. Bank statements showing hidden accounts totaling over $1.2 million. Credit card records showing monthly hotel stays. Correspondence with his current mistress. Payments to a previous affair partner totaling over $150,000. The judge reviewed the documents. Mr. Callahan, can you explain these records? His lawyer hesitated. My client maintains these finances were managed appropriately. The hotel expenses were business-related. The judge raised an eyebrow. I've heard enough. I'm granting a temporary restraining order. Mr. Callahan, you are to stay 500 feet away from your wife, her residence, and your daughter's school. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. My husband's composure cracked. This is ridiculous. She's the one who's unstable. I suggest you stop talking, the judge interrupted. I won't hesitate to find you in contempt. The custody hearing came 3 months later. His lawyer argued I was mentally unfit, anxiety disorder, psychotropic medication, erratic behavior. The judge turned to Theodora. My client has been primary caretaker since birth. She's managed the household, attended every school event, handled every doctor's appointment, while being systematically deceived. Furthermore, Mr. Callahan violated a court order, made explicit threats, and false CPS reports were traced to his mother's phone. Based on the evidence, the judge said, I find Mrs. Callahan fully fit to continue as primary caretaker. Mr. Callahan will have supervised visitation pending psychological evaluation. The restraining order remains in effect. I watched my husband's face. What I saw wasn't defeat, it was rage. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Half of all assets, spousal support for 5 years, child support until Gemma turned 18. After legal fees, I walked away with nearly $600,000. I bought a house. Small, nothing fancy, but mine. Gemma chose bright purple for her room. For the first time in 9 years, I could breathe. 3 months later, a man approached Gemma on the playground, said he was her father and wanted to take her for ice cream. The hearing suspended his visitation entirely. He didn't show up. 3 days later, his body was found in his car in a parking garage. Apparent suicide. The detective's name was Marcella Vance. The death appears self-inflicted, she said. But given your contentious divorce, we have to investigate. Did he ever express suicidal thoughts? Never. He thought he was invincible. Later, she called again. The note was typed. Autopsy showed sedatives. We believe he was murdered. They arrested a man named Giovanni Caruso, one of his business associates, criminal network. My ex-husband had been skimming money. When they discovered it, they made it look like suicide. The case remains open. What I know is this. I survived. Gemma is 12 now, thriving, happy in our little house with its purple bedroom. I went back to school, finished my marketing degree, got promoted twice at the firm where I started as an assistant. Sometimes I look at the Venmo screenshot. Request from Dolores, $3,500 for the usual. Don't tell Ren, she'll just make a fuss. One accidental message unraveled 9 years of lies. My sister got married last spring. I was her maid of honor. Gemma was the flower girl, scattering petals down the aisle with the kind of unself-conscious joy that only children can manage. At the reception, my mother pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, she said. I know I don't say it enough, but watching you rebuild your life, watching you become this strong, independent woman, I'm so proud. I hugged her tight. I learned it from you, I said. It wasn't entirely true. My mother had stayed in her own difficult marriage for 30 years, had never found the courage to leave, but she taught me other things. Resilience, determination, the importance of protecting your children at all costs. Those lessons had saved my life. The house I bought has a garden now. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs. Gemma and I planted them together last spring, kneeling in the dirt, hands covered in soil. This one's growing, she said, pointing at a tiny green shoot. They all will. We just have to be patient. Patience. It's something I'm still learning, after years of living in survival mode, but I'm getting better at it. Dr. Okonkwo, my therapist, says I'm making progress, that the hypervigilance is fading, that I'm learning to trust again, slowly, carefully. I'm not sure I'll ever fully trust again, but I'm learning to trust myself. That's enough for now. Last month, Gemma asked me about her father. Was he a bad person? I thought about it for a long time before answering. He did bad things, I said. But people are complicated. He loved you. That part was real. Do you miss him? I miss the person I thought he was. But I don't miss who he really was. She nodded, processing this with the seriousness that 12-year-olds sometimes have. I'm glad you're my mom, she said. I'm glad you're my daughter. We sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about everything I'd lost. The marriage I'd believed in, the future I'd imagined, the version of myself that had trusted blindly, loved completely, never questioned. But I also thought about everything I'd gained. My freedom, my independence, my daughter, safe and happy and thriving. The Venmo notification had destroyed my life, but it had also saved it. I wouldn't go back. Not for anything. Because I'm not unstable, I never was. And now, finally, I know it.